Who will not win the Stanley Cup this year?
The New York Islanders.
Ooh, yes, I love that answer.
Even though they're favored by a lot of teams in the East, they will not win it.
Yeah, not going to win it. Most likely to be Hart Trophy winner.
Most likely is Connor McDavid. That's a 2-foot puck. The only question is, does Connor McDavid get over 150 points or not? All things, as long as he stays healthy, that's the only question. I think he does, and I think it's...
Is he going to?
I think he will, and I'll give you one more. I'll go another prediction on this. He also wins a Rocket Richard trophy.
Okay, wow. Okay, well, it's good. He's on my fantasy team.
So Hart, Art Ross, Rocket Richard. Boom.
Hey guys, welcome on into Drinks with Binks. I'm Julie Stewart-Binks, and you guys know I'm a huge hockey fan. I'm so thrilled today to be able to start the season of hockey with none other than someone who's a good friend of mine. I'm super pumped to have him on the show. We've known each other for a really long time. He's coming to us all the way from Canada, Stouffville, Ontario, for all of you out there to be precise. I know Stouffville. None other than Hockey Night in Canada broadcaster, host of the Jeff Marek Show on Fan 590. Jeff Marek, thank you so much for joining us here today on Drinks with Binks.
Okay.
And sorry, but congratulations on your new gigs with Hockey Night in Canada and Fan 590. You guys, you're always busy in hockey, and I love to see that you continue to keep developing new ways of broadcasting the sport. So congratulations.
First of all, that is a very kind introduction. Thank you very much, JSB. First of all, before we get this going, I'm about to unveil a part of your past. Okay, as is traditional on Drinks with Binks, right? We all have a sip to start things off. I'm not a drinker, so we're having a cup of tea. I got a cup of ginger tea here, but I'm drinking it in a Niagara Ice Dogs.
Oh man, Niagara
mug.
Ice Dogs.
And I bring the Niagara Ice Dogs mug out because I know somewhere, maybe buried deep, deep, deep inside Julie Stewart-Binks, there is still an OHL rinkside reporter. True or false?
100%. I feel like I actually am still that person every single day. So I appreciate you bringing out the OHL Ice Dogs. That's a long time ago. Cheers.
That is. I could also have brought out Kingston Frontenacs or Regina Pats as well if we wanted to go deep into the junior hockey legit history of JSB.
Yes, let's do that. The hockey history of JSB. I'm sure people would find that most thrilling. But we want to know about the hockey history of Jeff Marek. And Jeff, just, I know you don't like talking about, you're always on the other side talking to Elliotte Friedman or whoever else. But, you've got these new posts. Like, tell me about what it's like now to start the season as a hockey insider on Saturday Headlines on Hockey Night in Canada, and also doing a radio show.
Okay, so the radio show is a daily 2-hour show. Yeah, the podcast continues with Elliotte, so we bark that out a couple of different times a week. People seem to dig it, and listen, it's a lot of fun working with Fried. You know Elliotte, both of you time previous with CBC and elsewhere. He's a pretty easy guy to work with and one of the more generous broadcasters I think you'll ever meet. So that podcast continues. That's not going anywhere. The daily radio show is a lot of fun. It's not since Hockey Night in Canada radio, when you and I first met, have I done a radio show by myself. It sounds daunting, but listen, you're like me. Like, we yap, right? Like, we talk. So doing 2 hours a day,
just don't.
Yeah, just start and then stop. Whereas my wife likes to say, Jeff, you really don't do anything. All you do is talk about things that other people do. And you know what, Claire, you're right. She's got an excellent point there, JSB. But yeah,
hey, well, look at this. Drinks with Binks is like featuring everyone else. I agree with that. So
right. And then the Saturday rule is interesting because I've never worked as an insider or in that under that title. But it's kind of something I've been doing for a long time, just from knowing people in the industry and following hockey closely and developing relationships. And now it's just more taking that, distilling it, and sharing information that you can find. But I'll tell you what, it's really interesting, Julie, because I've always been, as you've pointed out, I've always been in the host chair. So being in an analyst chair, insider chair is different. And I was saying this to my wife the other day. I never knew that I'd get a chance to do a version 2.0 of myself in my career. I thought that I'd always be in the pigeonholed in the host chair, just sort of asking questions, not being asked to answer anything. And so now I am. And what I find is it helps everything else, because it helps keep me plugged into the industry and people and stories, etc., which feeds into the podcast and feeds into the radio, and it becomes one big thing that now consumes my life 7 days a week. JSB, what did I sign up for here? Why did I agree to this?
Well, it is very impressive. It is very impressive because not a lot of people, as you mentioned, kind of get that opportunity to change positions, and you're sort of at the front of your mind where you're always having to react now instead of maybe being in control necessarily of everything. But you spent a lot of time with Elliotte Friedman.
True.
I'm sure you get asked about him all the time, but if you were to say, like, you guys are on the podcast, you're on Hockey Night in Canada together, the two of you, your relationship, what would be maybe like a movie analogy or like characters on a TV show that you feel you're synonymous with?
I think of a really bad, cheesy cop show, right? Maybe Chips, or if I want to go really old school, One Adam 12. I'm really dating myself with that one, by the way. That's a very 70s. I know. Oh, my back, Julio. Hang on a second here. Past Grandpa's cane. Well, I'll tell you what. Like Elliotte, first of all, he's best in his field. Like, he's established himself now as, the NHL, not just NHL, but all of hockey's, leading insider. And even he will admit to you, he'll say like, I know basically like 30% of what's going on in the NHL. I think that's folly, but he's just kind of humble. The thing about Elliotte is he's generous, not just as a broadcaster, but as a human being as well. Like, he's a really nice guy. Like, he presents himself sometimes as being like really dismissive, but he's got the biggest heart in the world. Like, he is with me and David Amber. Like, it's taking the piss out of both of us. But the thing about Elliotte is I've seen so many different stories and so many situations where he's helped not just broadcasters, but other people, keep the DMs open, help people along the way.
Wow, that is very complimentary. And
I want to hear another story, and I almost like tear up every time I tell this one. And this is from when you and I worked with him at CBC. This is when CBC had the CFL rights, and Elliotte was somewhere, and a couple came up to him and said, "Hey, are you Elliotte Friedman from CBC?" And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, listen, our young son watches, never misses a show, loves the CFL, watches all the games. Can you get an autograph?" And Elliotte said, "Yeah, sure. Where is he?" And he said, "Well, he's hiding around the corner. He's going through chemotherapy. He doesn't have any hair, and he's really embarrassed about it." This is when Elliott's like a pretty young broadcaster, and Elliotte calls the kid over and has a chat with him and signs autographs or whatever. He says, "Now listen, are you going to watch whatever game it was, Saskatchewan and Toronto, or Hamilton and Calgary, this weekend?" And the kid said, "Yeah, I always watch it. I want to make sure you watch, and then I want to talk to you afterwards. I'll call you on Monday." Got his parents' phone number. So that day, that day before the game, he shaved his head bald. And then called the kid like a day or two later and said, "Don't ever be embarrassed about being bald, ever a day in your life." And I can only imagine what it meant to that young man. I can only imagine what it meant to that young man's parents. But that's a guy that's not shy about using his appearance to make life better for other people. That's Elliotte.
Wow.
That's the story,
is an extremely
right?
Powerful story.
National television.
Is, honestly, I didn't know that depth of how he felt for other people. That's great insight.
He's a great guy.
Obviously, he's the good cop of the two of you.
So that makes me the jerk then? You gonna lean into me being the jerk of the two?
I mean, against a guy like that, like, I don't know what Marek, you got to step it up a bit. If you guys are going to
that's high rent district.
The old cop
I can't hang there. I got to be. I'm the grouchy old veteran that can see the gate and just wants to get to retirement. Elliott's still full of life and compassion.
You complement each other, so that's good. We have so much more we want to get to with Jeff Marek, Hockey Night in Canada broadcaster, host of the Jeff Marek Show on the Fan 590. Don't go anywhere. This is Drinks with Binks. Hey guys, welcome back into Drinks with Binks. I'm JSB, joined by Jeff Marek from Sportsnet's Hockey Night in Canada and the Fan 590. And Jeff, before we get into some hockey storylines, you're in Toronto. You're surrounded by a lot of people who were inspired to get into the business because they were Toronto Maple Leafs fans.
Yep.
So is everyone just kind of depressed about just life these days?
You know what's interesting about the Maple Leaf phenomenon right now, JSB, and this has been, really great regular seasons from the Maple Leafs and then flame out in the first round. And this past season was perhaps the most spectacular flame out of recent hope by the Maple Leafs, up 3-1 against the Montreal Canadiens, only to lose in 7. Here's what's happened. It's a very peculiar phenomenon. The way the Maple Leafs lost last year in the playoffs has pretty much removed the element of joy from any regulation season, like a regular season win that the Maple Leafs can have. Like, they can go on a 12-game winning streak right now, and you know what the conversation will be? That's great, but it doesn't really matter until the playoff. Like, it's just sucked any joy that a sports fan could derive from a regular season. It's just been vacuumed out of Maple Leafs fans right now, where normally they'd be looking at bridges and saying, well, I'm not sure if we can fit the floats and the balloons underneath that one, may need to make a different route. Now it's just none of it matters until we get to the playoffs. Like, there are just some teams in any sport. This is not unique to hockey or the Maple Leafs. In any sport, there are just some teams that the regular season has no answers. There's nothing at all. Regular season really is meaningless. All the answers are held in the playoffs, and you just can't get there fast enough. Yeah. Maple Leafs are one of those teams.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that's how I feel all the way in New York. I just like this year as a fan, I've been obviously very open about that. I was just like, I can't. Like, I don't care. I watched them against Rangers the other night in a Rangers household too, and they lost in overtime. I was like, cool, I don't care. Like,
that's the best way to be.
This overtime loss doesn't mean anything at all.
Well, what a performance! What a performance by Igor Shesterkin! Holy smokes, is this guy the real?
He was insane. He's insane.
So he was my pick for the Vezina Trophy this year at our website. And I always sort of go off the wall.
Pretty good. A week into the season.
Last year I picked Carter Hart, and he had the worst season of his career. So I just hope that I didn't jinx Shesterkin. But like, I don't know that I've seen a better goaltender at anticipating shots than Shesterkin. We saw that earlier this week against the Maple Leafs. That guy's flat out good.
He is, and they needed him because they wouldn't have won without him. And a team that is doing well in the absence of this player, we're shooting this on a Wednesday, is the San Jose Sharks. Evander Kane, got to talk about the fact that he had the 21 game suspension for forging a vaccination card for COVID. If you were one of his teammates, how would you feel about this when you saw him come back?
With this one, if I was one of his teammates, I just wouldn't be surprised. I mean, there's been so much that's been built up with Evander Kane. Hasn't been the most popular guy in, this isn't just about the San Jose Sharks either with Evander Kane. I mean, this goes back to, Hockey Canada, the Winnipeg Jets, the Buffalo Sabres, now with the San Jose Sharks. There are a lot of players, that have noted, like, it's a much different environment now that Evander Kane isn't here. The interesting thing about that is he had one of the best seasons of his career last year with San Jose. He was a really good player. Does he rub his players the wrong way as teammates? Absolutely. There was always the feeling in San Jose the past couple of seasons that he was allowed to break rules without consequences. And we all know that in every sport that there's a different standard of rules for different types of players, right? What was the old great saying by Don King? Well, where there's money, there's understanding. And in sports where there are great players, there are understanding. But he's not the most popular teammate, so I think with this information, this might have just been greeted with a shrug and one of those, just put this information over there on that pile of other stuff, of other baggage that Evander Kane has built up with his teammates.
Right, that's fair that he has this reputation.
Still not great.
It's not great, but it definitely is not something that you've kind of lost respect for him already, so it's not necessarily the straw that broke the camel's back.
The one player that I think about through all that JSP is Thomas Hertl. Now, Thomas Hertl is, a wonderful young player. I shouldn't say he's old. He's in his late 20s. But he's in the last year of his contract, and, there are some legitimate concerns whether the San Jose Sharks will be able to re-up with Thomas Hertl, or they'll have to do something with him come trade deadline time. And he's remained pretty professional and tight-lipped about the entire Evander Kane situation. But I wonder if Elliotte and I talked to him in Chicago at the NHL Players Tour, and he didn't want to go there, but you can tell that he's, more than a little bit frustrated with the presence of Evander Kane on his team.
And you can't blame him. I feel as though you just did Jeff Marek, the host, right there, we're doing a show together, because we could have segued all into Hurdle, which I like. It's good. Keep me on my toes to keep in charge, just like Dan Patrick tries to take the reins whenever he's on the show. Very quick before we go to break, though, Connor McDavid. We know him as, arguably the best player in the NHL.
Yep.
But if he was on another team, any other team than the Oilers, could he be more famous in both Canada and the USA? What team would it be that he could possibly be more famous?
The answer is the same answer I give to any player, and that's the New York Rangers. Like that's where, like, I've talked to a lot of players who have played with the Rangers before, and they'll always say the same thing. You need to have, if you get a chance, have the Ranger experience, have the New York experience, have that, know what it means to play in that building for that team. I mean, we can talk a lot about the Montreal Canadiens, for example. And I know you've been there to experience 7:01 Eastern on a Saturday night at the Bell Center as, the lights drop and Coldplay's Fixed You comes on and, it's Ghosts of the Forum and there's like the goosebumps up and down. It's a unique feeling in the NHL. There are just some markets that are like that and teams that are like that. Rangers are like that. The Rangers are like that, and guys will talk about walking up the ramp, and they'll know that day whether I'm going to have a good game or not based on how my legs feel at the end. And walking out into the streets of New York City after a game, and the charge of the city gives you a real buzz. To say nothing about pulling that sweater over your head or jersey over your head, and as we call them in the United States, sweaters in Canada. Thank you very much. And what that means and what that feels like. But when you're a superstar in New York City, you're a superstar everywhere. No disrespect to Edmonton. Would he be a much, much bigger star, like capital S star, if he played in a market like New York? That's the obvious one. I don't think that's controversial either. Like that's established.
Not controversial at all, but it is very on point. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere, as they say. But Edmonton, also great city, but not New York at all.
No one would ever confuse the two. No one would confuse the two. No.
No. And thank God I'm not on the prairies in Canada anymore. Sorry, guys. Love you, but I live in New York City now. And we are Drinks with Binks. In New York City, we have a whole lot more to get to with Jeff Marek from Hockey Night in Canada. Don't go anywhere. We're sipping on a little tea. Hey guys, welcome back to Drinks with Binks. I'm Julie Stewart-Binks, joined by Hockey Night in Canada broadcaster, my good friend Jeff Marek, and we are going to play a little game called One-Timers, where you cannot let the puck stop moving. So it's a little bit like rapid fire.
Ooh, can't go off the toe, can't go off the heel. It's got to be a clean Dougie Hamilton-esque one-timer. Bam!
Boom. Yes. I want you to hang out like Alex Ovechkin in the face-off circle and slide this one home, bad boys. Okay, why did I say that?
Or like a million veterans that don't want to skate and just want to take one-timers at the half wall. Hey, the power play goes through me, boys. Yeah, okay.
Very true. That is a very stealth veteran move. Okay, so I'm going to ask you some questions. First thing that comes to your mind, just let her rip.
Let's go.
Okay, I've got the puck. Who will not win the Stanley Cup this year?
The New York Islanders.
Oh, yes, I love that answer.
Even though they're favored by a lot of teams in the East, they will not win it.
Yeah, not going to win it. Most likely to be Hart Trophy winner.
Most likely is Connor McDavid. That's a 2-foot puck. The only question is, does Connor McDavid get over 150 points or not? All things, as long as he stays healthy, that's the only question.
Does he?
I think he does, and I think it's.
Is he going to?
I think he will, and I'll give you one more. I'll go another prediction on this. He also wins a Rocket Richard Trophy.
Okay, wow. Okay, well, it's good. He's on my fantasy team. Okay.
So Hart Ross, Rocket Richard, boom.
Best barn in the league.
Best barn in the league. I always got to go to Montreal. Everyone has to have that experience, although some of the newer ones are certainly gorgeous. I'll take Montreal just because of the historical background of it.
Agreed. Begrudgingly, it is.
I know it is too.
Trade places with one person in hockey, front office, on the ice, wherever, broadcaster. Who would it be?
It would probably have to be broadcasting. No, you know what? No, I've always wanted to be a player. Here's who I would take. I would take. You want the high-pressure situation. You want a chance to do something historic. I would take Austin Matthews of the Toronto Maple Leafs because this is a team that hasn't won the Stanley Cup going back to 1967, and whoever ends that... Once upon a time, I would have said someone from the Rangers, right, before they won their Stanley Cup in 94. but really just anyone off that Maple Leaf team, because if you can end that drought, like there's still people I talk to now. I just talked to Neil Smith not too long ago, and he's like, listen, people in New York still walk by and say thank you to me. I won the Cup in '94, and they're still saying thank you. You do that in Toronto and you're a legend. Austin Matthews or any of those Maple Leafs players.
Just gave me some chills.
Although, you know what? It would be pretty cool to have the skill set of Connor McDavid. Just to live in Connor McDavid's skin for one day, that would be pretty fun. That'd be pretty cool.
I know. He would not have brain fog, I don't think. He could possibly not. He would just be so good at, it's like the numbers all going down the screen. Austin Matthews is a great one. Think he would have a lot of stress right now, but in the good days, definitely agree with that.
Yep.
Okay, this has been One Timers with Jeff Marek, guys. We will be back with more on Drinks with Binks. Don't go anywhere. Subscribe to the Fubo Sports YouTube page for clips and full episodes. Follow us at Fubo Sports on all social media channels. Also available in podcast form wherever you find your favorite pods. Hey guys, welcome back to Drinks with Binks. We've had an awesome time drinking and binking with Hockey Night in Canada's Jeff Marek. Jeff, where can we find you next?
Okay, so this is my sign-off segment here. Okay, real quick. So you can find me on Twitter at Jeff Marek, Instagram, Jeff Marek Hockey. I want to take the scant couple of minutes, or not even minutes, but seconds I have here on your program to talk about one of my favorite topics, and that's you. If you're watching JSP for the first time, this is a person who I think is a role model and an inspiration. And let me frame it this way. I think Amelia Earhart was the greatest feminist of all time. You know why? Because she said, it's me and the plane. No excuses. That's it. And there are only a handful of people that I've ever met, Julie, that are like you, but you embody that spirit. You have persevered. You put your hand up. When I used to work with you at CBC, you put your hand up for everything. You jumped into challenges and then figured it out later, but you were brave enough to make those decisions. And I've never heard you make an excuse 1 minute in your life. We all face adversity. We all face challenges. You have never wavered or changed in your personality, your outlook, or your optimism. You, Julie Stewart-Binks, are an inspiration to broadcasters, male and female, everywhere.
Jeff, wow, thank you. I see that you got that huge, nice basket of candy and money that I sent you to say that on the show, but thank you. Obviously, I do not deserve any of that.
I read that exactly as you wrote it, Julie. Did I get anything wrong?
Good. I like that you brought in the Amelia Earhart reference. Me and her are 100% on the same level.
Well, I'm going like my reference is like 1 Adam 12 earlier. Now I'm going back to Amelia Earhart. You better start before I date myself anymore,
well,
Jules.
You're much too kind, and that is the person that you are. You are always making other people look good and trying to do such. And also, you know what? Don't let Elliotte give you flack for blowing past any stop signs when you are on Hockey Night Canada. You talk as long as you want, because my producer's been telling me to wrap this entire show, and I do not listen to him. Yeah. And I know that you did that on your first time. No, you didn't do that, but
I did.
Wonderful.
I did.
Totally. You didn't know.
Totally did.
You were the star of Hockey Night Canada, and thank you so much for being here on the show today. Cannot wait to watch you this weekend and to catch up in the future. And guys, make sure you follow Jeff. He knows everything about hockey and beyond. And you know where you can find us at Fubo Sports on YouTube. You can watch all of our past episodes, and you can rewatch this one as well. And until next time, bottoms up, bitches.